Hello students and welcome to the module 3 of Bootstrap coding with me Priyanka. This is one of the very important modules students because in this particular module we are going to lay our foundation stone to understand Bootstrap. In this module I'll go through all the important concepts that we need to continue this video series. So I would really request you to fasten your seat belts with me and make sure you understand this module properly. If not, I agree it's difficult, but I totally going to suggest you that please watch this module again if you have missed anything. Alright, so let's get started. So as you can see, the name of this module is Getting Started with Bootstrap, and in this module students we will be looking at the very important thing, how we can install Bootstrap, how we can actually use the concept of the grids, and we will also see the concepts of classes. So let's get started. Now students, we've already covered in the previous module that Bootstrap is the technology which helps us to make responsive web pages. Now responsive, as we've already discussed, it actually adjusts itself according to the size of the window, be it a size of a tablet or be it a size of a small PC or a mobile phone. Now in order to do the installation, in order to use the Bootstrap, the very first thing that we need to do, as we've already written down here, installation, there are two ways. One is we can import the Bootstrap to our code, that is what is one we can do, or we can download a sample project which is available on the internet obviously. So import the Bootstrap to code and download the sample project. Downloading a sample project is quite easy. You can go to the Bootstrap website and you can always download the code from there. For the importing, we will be actually going to the Bootstrap website and we will see how we can install it. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. So for saving time students, I've already opened the Bootstrap website and you can see that we can get all the documentation, examples, icons, themes from this. Now, if I go to the documentation students, remember for using the Bootstrap, we need to download the CSS, or we can also basically link the CSS which the Bootstrap gives us. So with this what happens is the inbuilt CSS which Bootstrap is providing, we get it onto our code on our HTML page, and in addition to that whatever CSS you write will actually override the CSS what the Bootstrap gives us. Similarly for the JavaScript, you will see that I will be using this, I will be copying this code and including this, and students from this video tutorial to the end of this video tutorials we will be repeating this step. But remember, in all the video tutorials I will not be repeating this step, so that we can learn new concepts in new modules. So very first thing, for the CSS, for the JavaScript and for the jQuery if needed, you have to copy these links one by one and you can paste it into the code. So you can see I've got a sample Bootstrap practice code and you can see that here I can paste. I've already pasted the JavaScripts and the CSS which is needed. Let me just make it a little bit smaller so that you can see it very carefully. Now in this particular code you can see that the CSS link that the Bootstrap gives us, which is right here on the website, I've just copied this link and I'm using it here. Similarly the JavaScript which the Bootstrap gives us, you can see there are multiple JavaScripts which they give us which we can use. So I've included all of them one by one, and on top of that we've already covered this meta tag in the HTML course, but for students who have forgotten, don't worry, let's do a quick revision. So the meta tag basically is the one which will give us the information about the HTML page, what kind of information we are using, UTF-8, and we are including the content width device initial scale. So this is the information that we are giving in the meta tag, and remember this meta tag, whatever you write inside this is not included in the HTML page. Is it clear so far? So what we've learned is that in order to start your Bootstrap, you can either install it, you can download it and use it, or you can basically directly link your HTML page with the links from the Bootstrap, or what you can also do is you can download from the sample projects. So these are the three things. All right, now let's move to the next concept, that is the concept of grid. Now students, I promise you, if you listen to this particular module in this particular part of the module carefully, life is going to be very, very easy when you're doing the Bootstrap coding. Now we will be every now and then using a word called as container. So do not get confused. What does the container do? The container basically gives us the padding. So it's going to actually give padding around the control. Okay, you will be using this every now and then, the concept of container. Okay, and you know students, what does a Bootstrap does? What makes Bootstrap actually responsive? It is the beautiful concept of 12 column grid. Bootstrap follows a 12 column grid in which what happens is it divides a page into different rows and columns. So imagine you've already downloaded the Bootstrap links here. You have already associated those links here. You know what's gonna happen? This will help divide your web page into the series of rows and columns. That's all it does. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you how the Bootstrap works, the grid concept of the Bootstrap. So what's going to happen here students, as I said, it divides into the rows and columns. So I'm going to divide some rows and columns. So assuming I am Bootstrap and I've seen that you have linked the code, what I will do is I'll start dividing your page into different rows and columns. So we've got 12 number written here, okay, and it divides it into 12 column grid. So to be more specific, it's a 12 column grid. Now doesn't matter, you can have the element taking the whole width, or if you have two elements or two controls, you can divide it into two, or you can divide it into three, and each of these will be 4 times 3 is 12, so 4. Then it can also divide it into 4, so each of them going to be 3, 3 4s are 12, or it could be 4 and a bigger part which is 8, or it could be 8 which is the bigger part and the smaller part which is 4, or students it could also be a series of 2's, okay, so 2 6 are 12, so I'll have to divide it into two parts, 1 2 3 4 5 6. All right, so this is also possible. So remember, this is a grid. Now what can happen is you can have a header which takes the whole width, okay, or you can have a header here and a paragraph tag which is taking this particular width, or you can have a button here, another anchor tag, link tag, and you can have another button. So it depends. But how will we actually tell the Bootstrap that you have to take our controls and actually divide the page into 3 parts or 4 parts or 5 parts? How do we actually tell that Bootstrap? That is through the concept of classes. Yes students, so this brings us to the next concept, which is the concept of classes. Now when I talk about the concept of classes, there are 4 classes which are present in Bootstrap. The very first class is XS, then we have SM, there is another which is called as MD, okay. So these are the different that we have got. Let me explain you these now. So XS is used for particularly for your small devices, you know, phone, in which the screen size is less than 768 pixel wide, okay. Now SM is used for the tablets, and in the tablets the screen size is more than 768 pixel wide. We've got MD, in which we will be taking the laptop screens, okay, and this one we'll cover in the next module because I don't want to give you all the information in one, it might get confusing. So we've got XS, SM and MD, and we've got this for the laptop screen, all right, and which is greater than equal to 992 pixel wide, okay. So students, in the next module what we will be doing is, when we start actually creating our very first Bootstrap page, I am going to show you the practical application, how you can use XS, SM, MD to tell Bootstrap how many columns grid do you want, or basically how many columns you want to divide your particular row to. Alright, so stay tuned. In this module, just a quick recap we will do before we say goodbye. So yeah, recap time. So we've seen in this module how we can install Bootstrap. You can either download the code from the link of the Bootstrap, and then you can link it later on. So what we discussed was, what we can do here, we could either just go to the Bootstrap, where it is, here it is. So we can directly copy this file, okay, which is definitely going to open what kind of a file? JavaScript file. You can directly download the code from here, or you can copy the link and you can paste it right in your Bootstrap HTML. That is the second option. All right, the third option is what you can do. You can actually download the templates. So this is what we have done in the recap. The second thing that we have looked at in Bootstrap is the grid method. How does a Bootstrap divides it into different 12 column grid. And the final topic we did was the concept of classes, in which we have seen there are a couple of classes which tells us, or which tells the Bootstrap how many divisions do we need in a web page. Do we need to divide our page into 3 columns, or do we want it divided into 2, or we just want a 1 column? So we'll see how this applies in the next tutorial. Please don't go away and stay tuned with me. Goodbye and take care.